Well, good afternoon to you. It's 5:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. So the assassin, the alleged assassin, was caught this week at an Altoona, Pennsylvania McDonald's. They say he's fighting extradition to New York right now. We'll see how well that fight goes. Luigi Mangione is his name. We know a tremendous amount about him, an unusual amount about a suspect in a crime this quickly, but the media is fascinated by him. And the left, it turns out, is in love with him. They loved him before they even saw the photos of him, and now they really love him now that they've seen pictures of him at the beach. There are a number of people who are very excited. Was that NBC we were watching earlier? Do I have that clip? They had shown one of the networks. Where does Casey Hunt work? Is that CNN? It's CNN. Okay, so one of the networks was showing him, and they're like, well, you should know why people are fascinated by him. And they literally took all the graphics off the screen so you could see the full image, so you could look at him shirtless there. Oh, that's something. They're all talking amongst themselves. So it's the straight women, and it's the gay dudes, by the way, who are also very affected by this. On the left, Tim Miller of The Bulwark was just talking on a podcast. He wears puka shells usually when you see him in public. He was talking about how his gay group chat has been absolutely blowing up.
This suspected killer, there's a lot to unpack here. Tim, what are your first impressions?
There's a lot to unpack here, including his six-pack would be among the things you need to unpack.
He did post yes. Yeah.
This is a very attractive man, and there are a lot of texts about that. So I have a few more things to say about that at the very end, but I knew that that's probably what people are coming here to hear my thoughts on. So you got to wait till the end to hear my additional thoughts on it.
Good that you did not bury the lead here. It's blowing up on the gay group chats.
The gay group chats are on fire right now.
The gay group chats are on fire right now. And on CNN, here's Casey Hunt, very excited by the photos.
You know, the clips we were watching at the top of this segment are driven by the fact that this is an attractive
we got to drop the banner to show why.
And it is deeply troubling that we are celebrating this.
It's on one hand, they're like, it's deeply troubling that we're celebrating it, but would you drop the banner so we can stare at them? Oh, boy. Joining us now, Bobby Burack, the columnist over at OutKick, to discuss the left's many deranged reactions to this. Bobby, good afternoon to you, sir.
Vince, happy to be here, but I have a question for you. So hearing those people say that this alleged killer is attractive, including the females and gay guys, how come they all got so mad at us when we pointed out that there are some relatively attractive women in Congress? This is like a double standard to me.
Did they? I'm trying to remember. They're always outraged. They're perpetually outraged, so I forget that particular episode.
Yes, there was a comment on CNN that said conservative men are over-sexualizing Congresswomen by saying they're pretty and attractive. Then the same network is saying this about this guy, so I'm just trying to figure out the rules.
Well, The Hill, remember The Hill publication, the newspaper, used to have I think it was the 50 hottest on Capitol Hill, and they would have a list of, this was back when America was way more normal, where you could say, there's some hot people up there on Capitol Hill, like random congressmen, aides. But no longer. You're not allowed to do that anymore unless you're a cold-blooded killer and the left has sympathies for your cause.
Yeah, what a really revealing point that they have made this week to sympathize, in some case celebrate this dude. Very eye-opening to me. I mean, look, I'm sort of used to crazy things happening because we live in a very unbalanced society. But I didn't see this one coming. I have to admit, this is pretty surprising.
Yeah, well, let me play another clip that emphasizes what a surprising moment we're living through. There's a former Washington Post columnist, Taylor Lorenz, who has been the person whose job it is to like report on the internet. That's at least the claim. And she was on Piers Morgan's program this week, and she detailed how when she saw the execution of that United Healthcare CEO, she felt joy. Listen to this.
I do believe in the sanctity of life, and I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Seriously?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father,
billions,
and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Thousands of Americans that he murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people.
Now, what has happened since Taylor Lorenz said stuff like this online and has been, sharing all these posts about how joyful she is that a father got murdered? Apparently, her podcast has been canceled by Vox. She had a podcast she was distributing through them, and now they're, quote, parting ways, according to Semaphore. What's going on here, and what should happen here, do you think, Bobby Burack?
There's a lot of ways to take this, and I do want to disclose Taylor and I are not complete strangers. About 3 years ago, she put on Twitter that I'm a very, very evil person who incites harassment among people like her. So I do want to get that out there that she's not a fan of mine.
Well, thank you for disclosing your relationship with her.
Well, I wanted people to know, right? This is someone who does not like me. She tweeted about me one time. So, on a more serious note, I'm happy that Pierce Morgan and other people are giving her a quote-unquote platform. I just published a column that I've seen these calls to stop talking about her, stop giving her a voice. No. That would save her. The more you give her a platform, the more she reveals herself as a complete whack job, nut job, someone who is not worthy of respect. Don't cancel her. Let her cancel herself. And every time she goes on air or posts on Blue Sky or Blueski, she exposes herself further. Is that what's called Blueski? Blue Sky? I don't know.
Let's go with Blueski. I like Blueski. I'm going to start saying that now. I like that.
We'll go with Blueski. But no, put her on air and show people who she really is. See, Vince, you and I already knew this was a very hateful and devious woman, but a lot of people didn't, including the New York Times and Vox. So to see her unmask herself, no pun intended, the worse it is for her.
Yeah, and actually, all of these publications that employed her should have to wear the shame of her long-tail legacy. So, like you mentioned, she worked for the Washington Post as a columnist. Prior to that, she was a reporter for the New York Times. Prior to that, she worked for the Daily Beast. Prior to that, she worked for Business Insider. And at one point, she was social media editor for the Daily Mail. She's being distributed now, or was up until like a day or two ago, by Vox, her podcast. And that's fine. Yeah. They hired her. She was a known quantity as she moved between each of those places and became more and more hysterical and insane in public. And so, now don't cancel her. Let people see what those organizations signed up for.
And for the past 15 months, we've seen this trend where people on the far left, because they feel empowered to share their views, are exposing themselves and in some ways canceling themselves. I mean, just to go through them, the Ivy League colleges prove to everybody that they're anti-Semitic, that they sympathize with some sort of Nazism, and also they believe in a very dangerous Marxian worldview that led them to, in some ways, support Hamas, the people who called Donald Trump Hitler. They made themselves known. The people who joked and downplayed 2 assassination attempts. And now you have Taylor Lorenz and other far-left nut jobs letting people know that they take joy in a father being murdered because he runs a health insurance company. No. Let's continue to put the spotlight on these people.
In terms of talking about the power of cancellation and what's going on, I want to shift to a different story with you, and it's the story of Caitlyn Clark. She gets a big cover this week. I believe it's Sports Illustrated that she gets the cover of, it's Time. Excuse me, it's a Time magazine cover. Yeah. She gets the cover on Time magazine, and in the interview in the Time magazine piece, she seems almost apologetic for her success. There's a paragraph in the piece that describes her, and it says Clark is cognizant of the racial underpinnings of her stardom. Quote, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege, says Clark. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them. the more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and then continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing. Okay. Bobby Burack, what am I reading here? What am I witnessing take place?
Well, first of all, that's just not true. Black women did not create the WNBA. A lot of the early stars were white women. But what we have here is Caitlyn Clark essentially apologizing for her quote-unquote white privilege, which doesn't actually exist, particularly in the WNBA, where being white makes you a target. But I would usually come on here and say, what a cowardly sponge she must be. But I do have some sympathy for her because we have to understand what's going on here. She is 22 years old. She is a minority in the WNBA as not only a white woman, but a white straight woman. She was bullied on the court all throughout the year, harassed by the media, harassed on social media from fellow WNBA players, sharing posts calling for her to be injured and slammed to the ground, using slurs to describe her. It's got to be pretty hard as a 22-year-old to walk into a locker room with mostly black lesbians who do not like you because of your race and sexual orientation.
Well, so to your point, this feels like a hostage note, to be honest with you. She's being like perpetually browbeaten for the deals she has. She's got endorsement deals. She's making more money than all the players that are around her. She's got these big endorsements to help pay for all of that. And as a result, she's constantly being harangued by the people around her who some of whom are framing this in racial terms and suggesting that how dare she? This was built on black women. But if I'm looking at the history of the league, the WNBA has never turned a profit. It has never once had a profitable year. The WNBA, in its entire existence, has been a charity appendage of the NBA. And so this idea that it was built on the backs of black women, which is what Caitlyn Clark is saying here, she's only saying that, in my view, because she's feeling this immense pressure from the people who hate her inside of the league.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece, I checked in May, saying that this would happen, that these bullies were going to browbeat her into becoming a woke activist. If not, they were going to hurt her. And this is not me being dramatic. She was targeted so many times. There was one incident, Vince, near the end of the season where this player, her name was Dejanay Carrington, had posted several racist remarks about Caitlyn Clark on Twitter and then stuck her nail into Clark's eye and cut it. And she played it off as, oh, it was just an accident. You slow down that video, she put the nail in her eye and scraped up and down. You had another player named Kennedy Carter slam Caitlyn Clark into the ground and yell a slur at her as she's laying there. That's a pretty scary thought if you're a 22-year-old woman, knowing these people not only dislike you, but they want to physically harm you. So is it a hostage note? Yeah, it absolutely is, because this is her only way to get treated fairly and just to get these race hustlers and quote-unquote race baiters off her back, because they were coming all throughout the year.
It's just so crazy to watch, and it's really tragic. It almost seemed like she was trying to stay away from all of this. She just wanted to keep her head down and play good basketball. And yet, as you point out, they have hectored her up until the point that she's mouthing the lyrics.
And this idea that she is this MAGA supporter isn't even true based on all of her social media stories and posts. She actually supported Kamala Harris. She just didn't want to make her brand political. She just wanted to play basketball like she's been dreaming about since she was a little girl. But because of how racially intense the WNBA is and the sports media is, they would not let her.
It's so nuts. And she was like, she really brought a lot of excitement to the league, and that's the way she was treated for that. And the women in the league who are attacking her have been the spillover beneficiaries of her talent, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I want to make this final note. So to show how important and influential she was for us at OutKick this summer, the biggest stories were, of course, Donald Trump Kamala Harris, and Caitlyn Clark. She was third.
Yeah.
We cover everything.
Yeah. Well, the good news there for Kamala is she finally beat someone. Bobby Burack, thank you. Columnist at OutKick. Good to talk to you today. All right, let's go to the phones. Mike is calling in from Sunshine, line 1. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Vince, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
You know, why do some on the left and unstable teenage girls fall in love with hot bad boys like Luigi Mangione? And let us not forget Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston bomber. He got a cover of Rolling Stone magazine. It was flattering a cover.
Yeah,
girls
it made him look like some sort of like rock star or something. Yeah.
But yeah, why is it that they do this? Is it because they think they're so good and that their love for this bad boy will change him? Is that what's happening?
Well,
here with the
you know,
left?
it's funny. I was just talking about this with Dave Kimber, who's working our board off air. He was telling me that somebody else, I think it was Chris Plant, maybe was talking about this today on our air. There's a condition called hybristophilia. Which is known as a paraphilia, where people are aroused by people who've committed outrageous acts like cheating, crimes, rape, murder. One of the reasons for this apparently is it gives their mundane lives excitement that they can like, oh, I'm fascinated by the murderer. They can start writing them love letters in jail, and they write back. And this is not a good idea. Ladies, I'm here to tell you, it's not a good idea. That doesn't end well. Thank you, Mike, for calling attention to this crisis, which still continues in our country. It's like Charles Manson, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. It's unbelievable. Coming up, Daniel Penny speaks. His first words in public. We'll share those. And those drones that are hovering over New Jersey, Congress is asking FBI about that. We have some of their answers next. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Some interesting Donald Trump Jr. gossip popping up right now, is one way to put it. Daily Mail has this report. They say, exclusive, Donald Trump Jr. is seen flaunting his romance with socialite Bettina Anderson in Palm Beach. There's a picture of Don Jr. holding hands with a very attractive woman. They're walking down a street together, which leads one to wonder, where's Kimberly Guilfoyle? They've been engaged for a while, right? I think it was 2020 that they became engaged, but they were perpetually fiancés since then. And here's Donald Trump Jr. holding hands with some other woman walking down the street of Palm Beach. And I mentioned this. There's actually a pair of stories now. Jennifer Jacobs over at CBS reports the following. President Trump is considering naming Kimberly Guilfoyle to become U.S. ambassador to Greece. What is going on? Now, if all of that ends up being true, Don Jr. seeing somebody else, Kimberly Guilfoyle is appointed to ambassador of Greece. maybe this is some 4D chess or something. Hey, tell you what, ambassador to Greece. How does that sound? We'll see. Anyway, that's the gossip. That's the Trump family gossip that's spilling out right now, and just in the last few minutes, we'll see how much of it's actually true. Daniel Penny is speaking out in public after his acquittal yesterday. After the jury concluded that, no, he's not guilty of murder or manslaughter or anything like that. And instead, he was defending the people on that train from Jordan Neely, the man who threatened to actually kill them, who said he was ready to go to prison. Here's Daniel Penny just moments ago on the Fox News channel saying that he has no regrets about the actions he took that day.
I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. I think this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable, and I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. Mm-hmm. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. and I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Well, he's reflecting very well on himself, isn't he? So there he is. He was with Judge Jeanine Pirro speaking on Fox. And he said he'd do it again. He'd do it again. 1 million court appearances, if that's what it took, in order to save somebody on that train. So he stands by that decision. I saw someone tweet yesterday, where does Daniel Penny go to get his life back? Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida responded, Florida, which is a good answer. That is, where does he go to get his life back? DeSantis says, Florida, actually. Come to Florida, he'll be fine, which is true. It would be fine in Florida. That's a good idea. So Daniel Penny may want to consider heading off to Florida, to the fine people of Florida, where they're going to be, where they will welcome him with open arms, very happily, down there. Also, states that are not Florida include New Jersey, where there are all these drones flying. Earlier in the program, we spoke with one elected official in New Jersey by the name of Mike Ganamort, an assemblyman in New Jersey. If you missed that conversation, it's on our podcast. You can go sign up for the Vince Coglianese Show podcast and listen to our conversation with Mike Ganamort, because he was telling us that, one, he's not ashamed of being Corey's brother, and two, he says that each night he sees between 1 to 12 drones floating over his neighborhood, the size of SUVs, small cars in some cases. He says they're big. These are big things hovering over the neighborhood. Sometimes they fly. The word we keep hearing is in flocks, and that they will do formations, patterns. They'll all line up in a line. That is creepy. Everything about that's freaky. And at every level of government, nobody's giving any answers. They're just saying, don't you worry, there's no threat to the public, but we have no idea what they are. Well, what? You can't have that. That can't be true. Both of those things can't be true at the same time. How can you give us some sort of comfort that everything is fine if you have no idea who is operating these things and for what intent? Today in Congress, they hauled in some FBI officials, and we're asking them what's going on. And here is Congressman August Pfluger asking an FBI senior official what the Bureau knows about what's happening in New Jersey.
What is going on in New Jersey?
So, sir, the FBI and our Newark field office, along with the state and local partners there, the Bureau is actively investigating the situation you mentioned, just the unexplained sighting of drone activity.
In between arresting January 6 people, they're actively investigating the drones over a major American state.
Over that part of New Jersey, including proximity to sensitive sites and areas of concern. So
Yes. So what does it mean? What have you discovered? It's been how many weeks, Corey? It was 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks so far, at least according to the eyeballs of people who live in New Jersey. 3 weeks straight of nobody knows what these drones are doing hovering over our towns.
We do not attribute that to an individual or a group yet. We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that.
We don't know if it's an individual or a group. So what he's saying is, if he's telling the truth, they have no idea. They have no idea. 3 weeks of investigation has led them exactly nowhere, to the point they literally are just posting, hey, would you call the tip line if you know what this is?
Of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights. But we're actively investigating. What the Bureau has done to aid our state and local partners is what we generally do, enlist the help of the interagency, enlist the help of the public. There's a tip line there, that 1-800-CALL-FBI, tips.fbi.
Have you noticed that the operator of these drones hasn't called the FBI to take credit for them? Like if your name, if your activity, if you were doing something completely legal and it was in support of your business or whatever, and it had become national news, what are these drones? What are they doing? The FBI is asking for tips. Wouldn't you call in? Like, hey, by the way, these are my drones. We're flying them for a perfectly legitimate reason. Just want to let you know. It's America. I'm allowed to do this. If you wanted to make your case, nobody's even bothered. There has been no goodwill phone call made to claim credit for this. So when government officials tell you there's no risk to you, that's weird because whoever's operating them is refusing to cop to it.
Yeah, for information from the public that could help us resolve this. It is concerning.
Is the public at risk? Is public safety at risk? Are we concerned that there are nefarious intentions that could cause either national security or a public safety incident that would put Americans at risk?
There's nothing that is known that would lead me to say that. But we just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
Other than the drones just hovering outside your window when you're naked or whatever. You know, it's like, why are they spying on my backyard? What in the world is happening? Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey was also speaking about this, and he was saying that in his district, they've had law enforcement who have been followed by the drones. Oh, that sounds good.
And I'm very concerned that we're missing something here. I've raised the issue, as has my colleagues, Maliotakis and others in New Jersey and New York, about these drone sightings. So last night I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working it every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there. So we thought maybe they'll replicate it. They didn't, but we thought it was a possibility. Then last night we had a number of other people there, including a commanding officer from the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water, followed right behind them. You know, and I said, "What's the rules of engagement? I mean, you do it if you're fighting against a narco trafficker or something." And they said, "We don't know. We don't have any." So I did reach out to the commanding officer at the Joint Base, which is also in my district, and talked to him. Had a very good conversation. Colonel Anthony Smith, Joint Base Fort Dix McGuire, the 87th Air Wing, Air Base Wing today. And I said, "I know you have the capability. You've put out press releases to identify and bring down drones. Why can't you deploy them at least to the ocean? Bring one of these down, find out who's doing it." They have the capability. They said, "We don't have the authority, only within the parameters of our base." Well, there's a national interest here. Our jets fly over the ocean all the time for training, so that perimeter is larger. So I did write Secretary Lloyd Austin asking that—
I'm sure he'll be all over it.
That capability that may be sitting in a closet somewhere. I know they use it all the time. But bring it out. And I'm not saying you got to share it with the sheriffs. It'd be nice.
If nobody really knows what's going on, it really goes to show you what a bunch of Keystone cops are running the whole operation. We can't do anything? There's nothing? Oh, well, I guess we're just going to have to suffer with this.
Just do it yourself. The interest of the American public. So I would ask if you would echo that request. I mean, DOD's got the capability, and maybe Homeland Security does as well. When we had a Zoom meeting with Secretary Mayorkas, our governor put it together, and I appreciated that. But I asked them, why can't we just track where they go to?
I guess one element that gives me comfort is that they're hovering over a blue state. If they were hovering over a red state, man, can you imagine the conspiracies that be running wild right now? Like, what has happened? Meaning, in other words, like, is the government floating drones over this red state in order to target Americans? These are Kamala voters. They're all floating over right now up there in New Jersey. Not all of them. Not all of them. There's some good people in New Jersey. In fact, there are good people on both sides. But they've got drones hovering over the state, and we're seeing rampant disinterest from the government or just complete incompetence. As an FBI official straight up tells Congress, well, we just don't know. We don't know if it's one person operating these drones or if it's a lot of people operating these drones. Did he say 50 drones? Yeah. Congressman Chris Smith, you've heard him on this program. Congressman Chris Smith says 50 drones came out of the ocean and were following behind law enforcement, tracking a boat. And they don't know what to do. They're like, what are the rules of engagement? How can we handle this? That's wild. Ken is calling in from Woodbridge now, line 3. Ken, you're on the Vince Colonnese Show. Hello, sir.
Hi, Vince. How are you?
I'm good, sir. What do you think?
Well, I got two things, actually. One was that why don't they just capture it? And that's not hard to do. We used to do those things in the Air Force. And also, my wife saw them in Prince William County, in the eastern part of Prince William County, 2 nights ago. She saw 3 of them. She didn't say if they were in a formation, but she saw 3, and they were separated, kind of equal distance from each other.
Could she tell how big they looked?
No, not really. They were kind of high, and it was dark, so it was at night, so you couldn't see it.
So here's
sort of.
I mean, here's one obvious takeaway. Like, people do own drones. People own recreational drones. They'll fly them. And I think various law enforcement agencies, they'll use drones for a variety of things. In fact, I think they're starting to use some drones now to protect Trump finally. But having said all of that, this is a very unusual and routine circumstance going on in New Jersey. They've never seen anything like this. They've got these massive drones that are up in the sky. They say they're the size of small vehicles. In one case, the ABC reported the size of a small school bus. The short bus is now flying above your neighborhood. And so they're wondering, where are these coming from? And don't you find it more than bizarre that nobody at any level of government can give us an answer?
Totally bizarre. And that, of course, throws up the hairs in the back of my neck. And also my wife did say that they were moving in unison. So my son-in-law is a police officer, and they don't use multiple drones. I don't know, but I don't know that, but for sure, I take that back. But moving in unison, so that's a little suspicious, and that is a tactic that you would use if you're flying military aircraft.
Yeah. Yes.
So they're on a mission. They're doing something. So
in fact, they do that. They do that when they fly the president. They fly HMX-1 flies multiple helicopters. 2 of them are decoys. They're meant to keep you from knowing which one the president's actually in. But this would be, I guess, it would be different with a drone. But again, it's perfectly legitimate to ask this basic question: what are they doing? What in the world are they doing?
Exactly.
And it's very frustrating that in the United States of America we don't have an answer to that question.
I think we're going to have to call Elon and have him capture these things because our government, there's no flight plan on these things. That's something that no drone has flight plan, especially if it's far to go. So if it's the police, they have jurisdiction. They don't need it. Well, I think they still have to fly flight plan. I don't know all the rules about flight plan.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, Thomas Crooks. Remember, Thomas Crooks, the guy who shot President Trump, he flew a drone over the scene to surveil it before the shooting. And it was only later, after the shooting was concluded, that they went back and they were like, well, we were able to track the flight pattern retroactively. It's like,
But that was a small one.
Yeah.
So these are quite large. So this is totally different and totally bizarre.
Yeah, big time.
So it's it is suspicious, but I think they should capture it.
All right, keep your eyes on the skies. I hope they can. Yeah, Elon can catch rockets that come down in midair using chopsticks. I think he could disable a single drone. Thank you, Ken.
We used to catch stuff dropping from the space using aircraft, using a hook.
That's so cool. All right, Ken, thank you. That sounds like it takes math, so I wouldn't be able to do it, but that sounds really awesome. Ken, thank you.
All
right.
Take care.
All right, we'll keep digging on these drones. Crazy stuff. Congressman Andy Harris will join us on the program tomorrow. If you missed anything today, you can get it on the podcast, The Vince Colonnese Show, available on WMAL.com or wherever you find a podcast. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.